Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi man wala. Alhamdulillah, we are going to start class number 4 in the Fiqh of Purification. Alhamdulillah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the chance to be here and show us another day so we can thank Him and worship Him as much as we can. So today, inshallah, we are going to talk about different types of water in terms of flowing. Can anybody remind me just quickly what's the difference between tahur and tahir? Okay. Excellent. So tahir is just pure in itself, but it does not purify anything, and tahur meaning it's pure and it purifies others, right? So can someone else give me an example of both? Example of tahur and example of tahir. Okay. Tahur is like water. It's pure and it can purify others. Tahir is like honey. Tahir is pure. Honey is pure, but you cannot use it to make wudu. And if you do, you got a problem, right? You're gonna be all sticky. Okay, so excellent. We also talked quickly about the size of water, right? We talked about the qulla, the dilemma, if you remember. Were you in the previous class? No, right? Sister Rohi, right? Lamia, okay. So we talked also about the size of the water, and there was hadith that says, from Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, that says, if the water is more than 2 qulla is like a container, right? More than 2 qulla, then it will not carry impurity. And we said, anybody can remind me what's 2 qulla size-wise? Actually, sorry, I was mistaken. 2 qulla is 500 liters, right? Abir, just for you because you actually answered. 2 qulla is 500 liters. So we talked about this, and then we came to conclusion that the size of the water doesn't really affect purity or impurity. By the way, the files are on the page. If you want, you can download it, inshallah. But take notes, please. It's the trait of the scholars that they took notes. There was a famous scholar back in the time, very famous, that he was in a lecture attending almost 20,000 students, and then he heard Imam Shafi'i came to town. He started packing his books, and he told his students, "Let's go listen to Imam Shafi'i." 20,000 students. Imagine someone with 20,000 students, like, "Hey man, I'm the man," right? But he had this humility to go learn from Imam Shafi'i, mashallah. Okay, so we talked about the size, and we said the conclusion was that the size of the water doesn't really determine purity or impurity, right? We'll get back to this in a second. Okay, so today, inshallah, we're gonna talk about hadith number 5. I know you have the book. Anyone else has a book? Okay, you can look with her. Abir, do you have it? Okay. So we're going to talk about hadith number 5. If you open that, please. You want to use mine? Okay, sure. So can you read it for us, sister? Mm-hmm. So this is hadith number 1. I'm going to call it 5a. لا يغتسل أحدكم في الماء الدائم وهو جنب. None of you should take a bath in stagnant water. He called it الماء الدائم while he is junub. We're going to come to all these definitions, right? And then there's a second hadith, if you can read that too. Right. None of you should urinate in a reservoir of water, whatever, that's not flowing, and then take a bath. And what's the third hadith? Maybe the sister can read it? Other sister? Yeah. Go ahead.
Muslim has the word from it that is from the water, but the well has one should not take that in its from sexual impurity.
Right. None should. Right. None of you should. Right. So we have three hadith basically so far. One is none of you should take a bath in a stagnant water while he's junub. Number two, Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, this one is not there, but it's kind of implied because it's part of another hadith. Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam forbade us to urinate in stagnant water. And then hadith number three, none of you should urinate in the stagnant water that does not flow and then take a bath from it, right? How many flowing waters we have so far, right? Looks like we have different terms. So in terms of water flowing, right, in Arabic or in Islam, we have three types. Number one, something called al-ma'ul jari, the flowing water. Al-ma'u al-jari, the flowing water. I'm going to give you that one. That one means it has a source where the water comes from, and it has an exit. So in and out. So an example of that would be river, right? It has a source and it has an exit. The second type of, so that's called al-ma'ul jari, flowing water. It has a source and it has an exit. The second type is a stagnant water, is called al-ma'u da'im. Al-ma'u ad-da'im, alif lam dal, alif, hamza, on a chair, and then meme, on a chair. That hamza is lazy, just sitting on the chair. Can't believe it. That's called al-ma'u da'im. Al-ma'u da'im is water that has a source, but it does not have exit. Has a source, but it does not have exit. Anybody can think of an example? Sorry? Like? A dam. Okay, so the water comes from some source and then gets stuck somewhere. Okay. I think that would qualify. As long as the source keep coming, right? Okay. Another example? A well? A well? A well is a does the well have exit? I don't know. You're right. Some wells don't, so it just comes one way. But some wells actually also have exit, so it depends. So well can be either way. How about a lake? Lake usually comes and then sits there, right? Most lakes, let's say. Or rainwater. The water comes from the rain and then gets stuck somewhere. So it had a source, but there's no exit. So that's still called al-ma'u da'im. And then the third type is called al-ma'u rakid. Al-ma'u rakid has no source. Alaykum as-salam wa rahmatullah. Al-ma'u rakid has no source and has no exit. No source and no exit, right? Who can give me an example for that? I cannot hear. No source, no exit. I mean, it had to have a source sometime, right?
Water in a container.
Water in a container. Bottle of water. It's right there. There's no source anymore, and there's no exit anymore. Water in a reservoir, right? Water in a tank, right? A basin, that's what they call it, right? So there's three types when it comes to flowing. Number one, al-ma'ul jari, flowing water. It has a source and it has exit, like river or sea. The second one, al-ma'u da'im, it has source but it does not have exit, such as the lake or rainwater that gathers someplace. And number three, al-ma'u al-rakid, does not have source, does not have exit, such as water in containers, right? Okay. So when it comes to stagnant waters, remember those ahadith we just talked about? All of them said stagnant water, stagnant water, stagnant water. It's interesting because in English, both al-ma'u da'im and al-ma'u rakid in English translates into stagnant water. But you have to say does not have flow, has flow, all that stuff to explain it. And that's part of the beauty of Arabic. We talked about it. English has about 600,000 words. Arabic has about 26 million words. See the difference? And that's why you can describe so much in Arabic. And that's why learning Arabic not only is amazing because it gets you closer to Allah and understand Quran, but it will show you just a huge different dimension. Okay. Now, when it comes to reusing water, someone has a bucket, right? I have a bucket, I'm using it and I make wudu. can then Abir come and use that same bucket to make wudu? There's still water in there, right? There's two opinions. Opinion number one, you cannot use that water. You cannot use that water for purification, right? If I use the first water from the bucket, whatever is left, he cannot use it.
Allahu Akbar.
You want to stop?
Allah.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wa salam ala rasulullah. So we're going to continue inshallah after Salat al-Maghrib, like we just finished praying. So we classified the water in terms of flow into ma'ul jari, which is, it has a source and it has an exit. Al-ma'ul ad-da'im, which has a source and it has no exit. And al-ma'ul rakid has no source, no exit, right? Now, can we reuse water for wudu, for ghusl? Someone use water from a bucket, the stagnant water specifically, and someone else can now use what's left from that bucket. Opinion 1 says no, you cannot use it. Opinion 2 says yes, because usage from the bucket or whatever tank has no effect, right? These are the two opinions so far. So let's analyze this. Number 1, if you think about it, all types of water to one degree or the other are used. Water recycle in a sense, right? So they are actually being reused even naturally. Number 2, there is really no evidence that we know of from Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that he said if someone use water, then whatever is left over you cannot use. There's no evidence. And number 3, we know that if there are no changes to the water, as in taste, smell, or color, then usage has really nothing to do with purity, right? The water is still pure. So for example, a cook, he's a cook, he's cooking, his hand has oil, maybe it has some food material, whatever, and he dips his water into the water bucket to use it, right? If that water does not change in terms of color, taste, or smell, this water is still good for wudu. So based on this small analysis, opinion 2 wins. Opinion 2 meaning usage has no effect on water purity, right? Let's go. Yes. It's analysis. There's no hadith for it specifically. For example, take ijma'. Ijma' sometimes is based on logic and not necessarily based on hadith necessarily, right? But on certain analysis, actually ijma', for example, is very complicated process. So even though everything is evidence, but sometimes they use it based on qiyas and stuff like that, and they can come up with an opinion, right? So opinion 1 really did not have any water anyway. That's why it's not even valid. It's not, it's not acceptable. Now let's talk about stagnant water and size, right? What about size? Remember we said if the water is more than 2 qullas, it's considered what? Plenty. We call it plenty. If it's less than 2 qulla, which is 500 liter, it's considered little, right? And even the size of the qullas, which is 2 qullas, is not unanimous. Some scholars said it's more, some scholars said it's less, but let's take 500 liter as the measure. And we discussed before that the size of the water has nothing to do with purity, right? We discussed that. So now, but what about stagnant water? This is the water that's stuck in a reservoir, in a tank. Does the size matter? So opinion 1 says if the stagnant water is plenty, meaning more than 2 qulla, then it is makruh to use the water, meaning you can use the water, but it's makruh. Can anybody tell me what's the difference between makruh and haram? Yes.
Makruh is disliked.
Makruh is disliked.
Yeah, and haram you can't.
Haram is a sin. Okay. Elaborate more. So if you do makruh, what? Do you get a sin?
If you do makruh, you're not sinning, but you shouldn't. But haram you get a sin if you do it.
Right.
But
So
makruh you should still stay away from.
right. So if you do makruh, you don't get a sin, right?
Not necessarily. Yeah.
And if you do haram, you get a sin. Any other opinion about that? Anyone disagree? Okay, this is correct. What about if you avoid makruh and if you avoid haram? Now Ahmed says, I gotta answer, man. There's chocolate here. If you avoid makruh and if you avoid haram, what happened? No, not you. You just answered. If you avoid makruh, if you avoid haram. You know? If you avoid makruh, what do you do? What do you do? You got a reward. And if you avoid haram, you got a reward. Yes, that's true. Just have to walk for it now. Right? Very interesting. Now, so opinion 1 says if the water is plenty, it's makruh to use that water. If the stagnant water is plenty, it's makruh to use that water. Opinion 2 said if the stagnant water is little, then it's haram to use the water. It's little, right? Then it's haram to use the water, meaning you cannot use the water, right? Give me 1 second. I need to check one hadith real quick. Just want to verify something. Right. Okay. The question though is, do we really classify water by size? Right? We answered that before. In terms of purity, we don't, right? Remember when we said we don't classify water by size in terms of purity, right? Last lecture we said that, right? But nobody really asked, well, why no? Why can't we? We only said there was a hadith that said if there's plenty water, right, most likely it's going to be still pure. If it's little water, can be impure. And then we said we use that hadith to indicate the general situation. If you have a sea and you drop impurity in it, most likely it's going to still be clean, right? So we use that hadith to say that. Why can't we really classify the water by size? Okay. To understand why we said no, we don't classify water by size, we need to get into 2 more fiqh concepts. So I want you to put your fiqh hats on, like our teacher always say. And Abir, you bought your fiqh hat? Okay, he has his fiqh hat on. Excellent. We have 2 concepts. Number 1, the concepts of al-mantuq. Al-mantuq meaning the spoken word. Al-mantuq meaning the spoken word. The spoken word meaning, if you say, for example, remember we says, surely the water is tahur and nothing makes it impure. It's ta'keed, it's verification, it's a positive. That's the mantuq. The spoken word here is the water is tahur, is absolutely pure. And then there's something called mafhum al-mukhalafa. Mafhum al-mukhalafa meaning understanding the meaning through the opposite or through the inverse. For example, if you say, remember when the hadith we said, if the water is more than 2 qulla, like a lot of water, most likely it will be pure. What's the opposite of that? If it's less than 2 qulla, then it will be impure. That's the inverse, right? Okay. I gave you another example. You said, if you are a city college student, you can attend this class or this event. If you are a city college student, you can attend the class. What's mantuq? What's the spoken word?
If you're a city college student, then you can attend.
Right. If you're a college student, you can attend. What's the inverse? If you're not city college, you cannot attend, right? That's the inverse, right? Now, the ruling is if you have the situation where there's something spoken word and there's something you can derive from inverse, the spoken word always win, because the spoken word is clear, is affirmative. But why does it win? Let's look at it a little bit more. First of all, the mantuq, which is the spoken word, is clear and direct. Water is pure, nothing can make it impure. Direct. If you're a city college student, you can attend. It's direct. There's no doubt about it, right? Number two, the inverse is weak. It's kind of weak, right? You have to kind of think about it and inverse it and stuff like that, right? Number three, the inverse is not always valid. The inverse is not always valid. Give you an example. If you come to our event, there will be a chocolate cake. Come to our event, there will be a chocolate cake. What's Ahmad? What's the spoken word? What's mantuq? What's clear? No, not the inverse. Mantuq is what's stated. Right. You're gonna come to the event. There is a chocolate cake. Here's a chocolate for you for that. Right. Sorry. What is the inverse of that? If you come to the event, you're gonna get chocolate cake. What's the inverse? But raise your hand first if you know. Yes. If you don't come, you're not gonna get a chocolate cake. Another inverse? Can anybody tell me another inverse?
What was the spoken word?
If you come to the event, there will be a chocolate cake.
There will be chocolate.
Yes.
Even if you don't come, will there still be chocolate?
Even if you don't come, there's still chocolate cake. That's correct, right? See? He said if you don't come, you don't get chocolate cake. He says if you don't come, there's still chocolate cake. Someone else said if you come to the event, there will be nothing else except chocolate cake. See the difference, right? But someone can say also, if you come to the event, there might be other than chocolate cake, but you don't know that. See. So this is a case where the inverse is weird, is not valid, is not straight, is not direct, right? That's why whenever there is a situation, mantuq or mafhum al-mukhalafa, you take the mantuq, you take the spoken word, right? And that is why we said we don't take the size, right? So if that's the case, remember when we said that the water purity is only affected by change, right? Change to color, change to taste, change to smell. If you see a water and change the color, change the smell, change the taste, then it's not water anymore. You cannot use it for wudu. You cannot use it for ghusl, right? We call it not water anymore. So why did we say that the purity is only affected by change? Let's apply these rules. Mantuq, the hadith was, water is not made impure by anything. Remember that hadith? The water is not made impure by anything. That means, someone would say, wait, what do you mean? If I drop oil in the water, it's going to be changed. Yeah, but that time it's not water anymore. The water that we know it, that you can still call it water, is not affected by impurity. Right? We talked about it the previous classes, that if you drop something, if you drop mint in the tea, now it's called mint water in the water. Now it's called mint water. So it's not water, right? As we know it. So the mantuq here, water is not made impure by anything, is clear, is not made impure. And then there's the ijma'. The ijma', which is the agreement, consensus of the scholars that change can happen through color, taste, and smell, right? So this ijma', right? Someone would ask, you asked me that question, sorry, and I didn't give you a full answer. How did they come up to the ijma', right? How did I come up with that? Okay, one of the things they use usul al-fiqh. They use what we call qawa'id al-fiqhiyya, or fiqh rules. Give you an example. One rule, remember the one which says al-aslu baqa'u al-shay'u ala ma alayh, meaning the norm for things to remain on its original state unless there's an evidence it changed. The norm, if you leave this water here and you don't see any evidence, then it's water. If you see any evidence that it changed, that's a different story, right? So that's one ruling. And the second ruling is, we call it in Arabic al-yaqinu la yuzalu bil-shak. If you're certain about certain thing, doubt cannot remove it. For example, I made wudu. Now I'm like, did I break my wudu? I'm sure I made wudu. I'm not sure I broke the wudu. Then you have wudu. Because the certainty is you made wudu. The doubt is, did I make wudu? The opposite. You're absolutely sure you broke your wudu. Then, did I make wudu after that? Now the doubt becomes, did I make wudu? Then becomes, I don't have wudu, right? Based on those, then the ijma', they said, they came to that conclusion that water can only be changed through these things, through the color, taste, and smell. Because if it's here and nothing touch it, then it's remained in its original state. And the certainty thing is, this is water, nothing else, then it remained, right? So this is how they come to it. So ijma' in this case added to the mantuq. They supported each other. And that's why we said change can be done to water through purity, through change. Or water can be changed through color, taste, and smell. Right. So then, following this analysis, and I hope you are following so far, I know it's stuff, is that for stagnant water, we do not use size. Size is not gonna work with us based on all the discussion that we have so far. Right? The real change is still change to color, taste, and smell. Right? Now, any questions so far? Okay. Now let's go back to the hadith again. The first hadith said, لا يغتسل أحدكم في الماء الدائم وهو جنب. None of you should take a bath in the stagnant water while he is junub. Anybody can tell me what's junub?
State of after sexual activity.
Right. State of impurity after
Sexual activity.
sexual activity, right? So it requires what? How can you get rid of the junub? Ghusl, right? So it's two things. Number one, it requires ghusl. That's called junub. It requires ghusl, but that's not enough because there's other activities that require ghusl, but it's not junub. For example, anybody can tell me something requires ghusl, but it's not janaba. It's not that. When do you need to make ghusl? Friday. You need to make ghusl on Friday, but you're not junub, right? You're just part of it, right? Another chocolate? You're doing well. You're good? Here. Here you go. Another one so you can keep going. Another example, anybody can give me another example? You need to make ghusl and it's not junub. It's not sexual activity.
I mean, you're talking about just part of sunnah?
Anything, tell me.
Eight salah?
Huh?
Eight salah?
8 salah, but this is similar. So this is easy. After menstruation, women menses is not janaba. This is different. It's called, right? What is it called in Arabic? Haid, right? Right. Another one, not very famous for people know, taking shahada. When someone takes shahada, he must make ghusl. Is he junub? But that's not the point. Okay. So condition number one for junub, or he's junub or janaba is it requires ghusl. Condition number two, you said what? Sexual activity, right? This condition, it says discharge and no contact, or contact and no discharge. If any of those two happen, actually he's junub. Discharge with no contact and no contact, or contact and no discharge. What does that mean? Discharge and no contact, right? It's not like discharge and no contact, right? He's here, his wife is in another country, they're on the phone talking, discharge, right? It happens, right? He can touch her, become junub, right? He might go make ghusl. Number two, there's a contact, but there is no discharge, because there's hadith from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Imam Ahmad mentioned it. He says, if the two private parts meet, then ghusl is obligated. Meet doesn't even have discharge. If the two private parts meet from the man and the woman, then there requires ghusl, right? So this is junub. So now let's go back. You can skip slide 18 and 19. These were inserted by mistake. I'll fix it and inshallah I will upload it. So now the hadith which says none of you should take a bath in stagnant water while he is junub, right? لا يغتسل أحدكم في الماء الدائم وهو junub, right? we gotta look at another small concept, and that is called makharijul ghalib or makhrajul ghalib. Makhrajul ghalib meaning the usual scenario. Makhrajul ghalib. Ghalib meaning usual, makhraj meaning source or something like that. Okay, so makhrajul ghalib meaning you use words that are mentioned because it's the usual scenario. It's what usually happens, and not to restrict the word to that specific meaning. Right? What does that mean? Meaning, if the person is in junub, he's junub, right? He would want to take a bath. That's why he says, don't take a bath from a stagnant water while you are junub, right? Now, let's continue. There's also a few more concepts, and bear with me. One concept says al-a'la lil-adna, greater to less. What does that mean? Which one is higher situation? Think about it. Ghusl or wudu? Ghusl. Ghusl is higher. Wudu is only this. Ghusl is the entire thing, right? What that means is, remember what the hadith said? The hadith said what? The hadith said, do not take bath in stagnant water, meaning bath here meaning ghusl, right? Do not take bath in stagnant water while you are junub. If ghusl is larger than wudu, then I can also say this hadith what? Do not make wudu in stagnant water while you're junub, right? Meaning you made ghusl, but now you want to make wudu, right? So a'la to al-adna, ghusl is higher, right? I give you another example. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say about the parents, right? And how do you treat them? He says what? فَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا. Don't say uff and don't yell at them, right? What's uff? Anybody knows?
Like when you blow from anger
Right. You know what's uff? Uff is like, ah. That's uff. That's it. Don't even say that. Right? If that's what Allah said, don't even do that to your parents. Does that mean cursing your parents is okay? Right. Why? Because cursing is higher. Higher to lower. So if that lower is there, it even takes, the higher, right? And this is an example of al-adna lil-a'la. Smaller to higher. Right? So we saw al-a'la al-adna, we saw al-adna al-a'la. Also another example, adna al-a'la. Which one is higher? Junub from sexual activity or menses from the period for women? Which one is higher, you think? This is tougher. Women should know. Men are like, what? What's all this stuff? What's going on? Menses is higher. Why? Because junub, the woman take shower, the men take shower, it's done. Menses, you gotta wait until the period is over, and then you take. So it's higher, stronger, it's more stricter, right? Junub, you had relationship with your wife, in the morning, whatever, you take shower, you make ghusl, that's it, you're done. Menses, even she takes shower, but she has to wait for the period, so it's higher, right? Okay, so if the hadith said, don't do this while you're junub, it also means what? Don't do this while you have menses. See how you derive something, right? It's very important to know this derivation, right? So then, let's go back to, we really haven't decided yet what's the ruling on taking a bath in stagnant water. Opinion 1 says it's makruh. Makruh is prohibited. I forgot your name. Mustafa. Sorry, Mustafa. Makruh is prohibited, right? Opinion 2 is haram. The difference between makruh and haram is, if you do makruh, you get sin. Wait, he's new, so we have to do. You don't? Excellent. And if you do haram, you get sin. You're in trouble. If you avoid makruh, do you get reward or you don't? You get reward. Excellent. He's new and he's ready. Stuff. Chocolate for you. Okay. So opinion 1 says, taking a bath in stagnant water is makruh. Right? Is makruh. Opinion 2 says, no, it's actually haram. Right? Why? Because Prophet Muhammad said, don't. Right? So, which opinion wins? One says it's makruh, one says it's haram. And I hope you bear with me because this is fiqh. Fiqh is not just this is haram and this is halal. This is how you go there, right? The other one is just the end, and this is dangerous. If you only know that this is sometimes halal, sometimes it's makruh, and if you only care about this, you can get in trouble. If you know how to get there, nobody can fool you. If someone tells you dalil, whatever, you can say, wait a second, what about this, what about that, okay? Now, which opinion wins? In order for us to do that, we need a set of new principles. Number one. Number one says, النهي يقتضي التحريم. Prohibition necessitates forbiddance. What does that mean? Meaning, if Prophet Muhammad said don't, then it's haram. Don't, then it's haram, right? For example, لا تشرك بالله. لا تشركوا بالله. Don't make shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Means that's it. He says don't, it's haram, right? That means if we'll follow this opinion, taking a bath from a stagnant water, remember we'll talk about stagnant water. All this class is about stagnant water, which is based in a container and stuff like that. It has no flow. Taking a bath in stagnant water based on this opinion is haram. Haram, right? That's opinion one. Opinion one has a variation. Some guy says, yeah, but the prohibition, which is a nahy, necessitates forbiddance except in manners. What's manners? Adab. Adab. What does that mean? They says, for example, Prophet Muhammad said what? He said, don't sleep on your belly. Don't. Is that haram if I sleep on my belly? Now, if you follow opinion one strictly, it's haram, right? They says no, because this is manners. This is about sleeping. It's not worship. It's manners. So because they said except in manners, now it's what? It's makruh. So opinion 1A, if you will, says النهي يقتضي التحريم. Prohibition necessitates forbiddance except in manners. So in this case, sleeping on the belly is manners, at which time it becomes makruh, not haram, right? Eating with your left hand, right? Because eating is manners. If you strictly go with opinion one, that's it. Anybody eat with their left hand, man, it's haram, you're in trouble. If you go with opinion 1A, which is slighter, which is except in manners, no, it's makruh. Which is, alhamdulillah, blessing for people who cannot. For example, they might not be able to, right? Some people might not be able to. In that case, taking a bath while you are junub, taking a ghusl while you are junub in stagnant water becomes makruh, because that's shower is also manners, right? Or doing it manners. So that's opinion number one. Opinion two, he says at-tahrim yaqtadi. Sorry, this is now we continue. So number one we said an-nahy yaqtadi at-tahrim. If he says Prophet Muhammad said no, then it's haram except in manners, right? Now you take part two. If it's haram, meaning that action is invalid. At-tahrimu yaqtadi al-fasad. Forbiddance necessitates invalidity of the action. What does that mean? So it goes like this. Prohibition necessitates forbiddance. Prohibition necessitates forbiddance, right? Al-nahyu yaqtadi al-tahrim, and forbiddance necessitates invalidity of the action. And now that tahrim of the action make that action invalid, fasid, right? So following the above point, let's think about it. If someone make ghusl or wudu from stagnant water, and remember the hadith, none of you should make ghusl or should take a bath from a stagnant water while he is junub. If you follow that, is his ghusl or wudu valid or invalid? Good. He doesn't answer right away. I like that. That's good. That's excellent, Mustafa. Because what we have in modern time is fuqaha who answer you like this. Right? Someone asks something, boom, 50 opinions on Facebook. Every single one says, I think I believe, I guess, logically, no dalil, no proof. Or they take one hadith and they make all the ruling on it. And that's dangerous. You have to know everything. You have to know all this stuff. Okay, so the question was, the hadith said, none of you should take a bath from stagnant water, which is a container, while he is junub. Junub is, we said, sexual activity. If that's the case and someone does it, remember the two things. النهي يقتضي التحريم. Forbiddance, prohibition necessitates forbiddance, and except in manners, which makes it makruh. And the second one is forbiddance necessitates invalidity. The action is not working. Now, someone does that. Is his wudu or ghusl valid or not?
Depends on if he's going with A or B.
Ah, nice. You're a mathematician. Excellent answer. Excellent answer, Mustafa. He's counting chocolate now.
I'm going to take that back by the end of the day.
Huh?
I'm
What is?
going to take the whole bag by the end of the day.
I don't know if I have that many questions, but it's good. You're on target. It depends on which opinion you are following. Okay, so let's think about it. Opinion 1. Water is tahur. We said what is tahur, right? Water is tahur. And tahur is meaning something which is pure and can purify others. Versus tahir, something is pure, but you cannot purify anything else like milk or honey. It's tahir, but you cannot use it to make wudu, for example. Okay. Opinion 1. Water is tahur. So wudu is accepted even though he did not follow the Prophet. Opinion 1. His wudu is still accepted. Why? Because he did not follow the Prophet in terms of he took a bath while he's junub, right? He made wudu there. He did not follow the Prophet, but his wudu is accepted. That's opinion 1. Opinion 2 says the water is tahur, but its use is haram. Because Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, don't. Its use, the use of the water is haram. Because the Prophet forbade using that water. So his wudu or ghusl in that case is not accepted. Right? I'm going to leave you with one thing to think about. Not leave you, we're not done, but trying to get done soon, inshallah. I'm going to think about this, but you don't have to answer me now. Not everything that's haram is impure. Not everything that's haram is impure, but everything that's impure is haram. Think about it, write it down, and tell me the answer later. This is just something to think about. One more time. You want to write it down? No. Not everything that's haram is impure. Not everything that's haram is impure, but everything that's impure is haram. Think about it, don't tell me now. Let's keep going. Okay. So we said there are two opinions about using stagnant water, and does that make his ghusl or wudu valid or not? Right? So we want to know which opinion would win. In order for us to do that, we have to understand something called illah. Illah is the reason for the ruling. The reason for the ruling. For example, if you say we don't eat pork, one of the reasons is it's dirty, right? We can get whatever. For example, men don't wear gold. We know one of the reasons is imitates women, and men and women should not do that, right? Okay. Does everything has reason in Islam? Everything has a illah? Not necessarily logically. Interesting statement. What do you mean by that? He said yes, but not necessarily logically. Right. You're almost there. Yes.
There's a hikmah behind everything, whether or not we understand it.
Excellent. There's a hikmah behind everything, whether or not we don't understand it. Can you give me an example? Someone else. Someone else. Oh, well, you just said that. You cannot give me the answer because you. There's a hikmah behind everything. Give me an example of something that has a hikmah behind it, but we don't understand it. Don't think too far. We do it every day. Why is dhuhr 4 rak'at? There is a hikmah behind it. Just don't know. We don't know. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has hikmah for everything. That's called illah, the reason behind specific thing. Okay, so number one, illah is the reason for ruling. That's the definition of illah. Number two, illah can be derived or unknown to us. Unknown to us. Number three, illah is important to know for qiyas, because you can say if this has happened here, we can compare it to this situation and derive some ruling, right? So what is the illah for not using water while the person is junub, using the stagnant water? Remember, anytime I say water in this class today is about stagnant water. Why is the illah? What's the reason we don't use the ma' al-rakid or ma' al-da'im, stagnant water, while junub? Yes, Ahmed.
I guess while using the water, there's no way for the water that has been used to escape, so it'll just make the rest of the tub or the area where the rest of the water is impure.
Okay.
lost.
So he said because maybe the water does not escape, so it might make the water impure. Okay, that could be. But what about the fact that we only know that water can be impure through change, right? We talked about this. We said that the only way water can be impure is through change. So just because he jumped in the water and he's junub doesn't mean necessarily a change. If you look at it, there's no change in color, there's no change in taste, there's no change in smell. You can actually use it, even though you might not think so, right? So this is close, but it's not the reason.
Just ask a question. Is that why when you're making wudu, you tell them you don't have to keep using clean water to when you go over a certain?
You don't?
You don't have to keep using like taking new water and putting it on. You can just use the same water over here. If your hand is still wet, you can just continue. Is that why? Because you're still using water. I like to use the water.
I didn't know that you can use the same water from.
In certain cases, I don't know about your arm, but I know that like if you're going from your ear,
Right.
you just continue and just go over your hair.
Yeah. So when we come to the wudu, inshallah, this applies to you going to the head and go like this, and then go to the ears.
Yeah.
That is because Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told us to do that. No other reason. That is the only sequence. But otherwise, if you're doing your hand, you're actually doing every time you're doing that. That also doesn't mean you're using a lot of water, and we'll talk about that. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was known to make wudu as much as this. Wudu, the whole wudu, just this, right? And see how much water we waste. Because all you need is really wet, like a little bit, right? So when you go to, inshallah, next time to masjid, don't just open the whole thing and just talk to people, hey, what's up? And, very little. Now, what other reason? This is a good reason, but it's not the reason. What's the reason? What's the illah that we should not use stagnant water while ghusl from stagnant water while you are junub? In order for us to remember that, remember the other hadith? I know because you don't have all the material in front of you. What was the other hadith? There was another hadith that said what? Do not urinate in a stagnant water and then take bath from it. Most guys like, what do you mean? I go to pool, whatever. Okay, that's not the same thing, okay? Right? Do not urinate in stagnant water, because pool is pretty big. Maybe, maybe this area different than this. But we talk about small container in a sense. This is the proof that the real reason that you cannot use it is because this disgusts people. It disgusts people. When we were studying this class the first time, and we said you're in the sea, and some impurity or someone urine in this area, because the sea is so big, someone else can use the sea, and some sister in the class says, ew, sea. But she says, ew, right? Because human fitratul insan, human nature is get disgusted by these things. This is the reason actually behind this. So let's make some conclusions. Number one, Islam has consideration for our environment. These are great things to say to non-Muslims, by the way. Islam has consideration for our environment. Why? Because Islam forbids you to take something that's pure and make it impure. Don't go urinate. Don't go jump in there while you are junub. Especially stagnant. And if it's flowing, that's it. It's flowing, it goes, that's a different story, right? Islam prohibits that kind of behavior. So they are considering the environment. Number two, Islam considers the true fitrah, fitrah sahiha, that people are born with, and what disgusts people. Because Prophet Muhammad said, don't take bath when you have urinated in it. Right? The more you do, and it's interesting too, think about this. The more you do, let's say you ignore this, and you do this, right? The more you do this, the more your soul itself, or that person's soul, will be rotten. This is like casual. This thing is okay, and I can make ghusl in it and stuff. And the more that soul is rotten, the more you're gonna fall in sin. It's amazing because it's related to behavior. If you're already like, again, this is from Muhammad told you this, I'm not urinating this, I'm not taking bath there when I'm junub. You already have that cleanliness already. And if you have that, you can also relate that to sins and your own soul. Number three, macro benefits win over micro benefits. This is hardcore fiqh. I can't avoid it. It's fiqh class, sorry. Huh? Nano fiqh. Macro benefit takes precedence over micro. Which one is larger, macro or micro? Macro, right? Okay, what does that mean? Some guy, and he said, guys, I'm dying here. I gotta urinate in this area, right? This is the micro benefit, right? But if he does that, maybe that area, maybe that tank, maybe animals drink from it. Maybe other people want to use it. Macro benefit, right? The environment, the larger community, right? So when there are two benefits, you always look for the bigger benefit, right? That's if we are true Muslims, if we are good Muslims. Of course, if he's not going to follow, then there's no point in what we're saying. Of course, we talked about this. Impurity is only through change. It's only through change, and it requires evidence. So when you say there's a change in this reservoir, there's a change in this tank, there's a change in this water, you have to see it. You have to see this. You have to smell it. You have to taste it, right? So if you taste this water after you drop tea leaf in it and it tastes like tea, you cannot make wudu in it. It already changed. Even though tea is cool, we like tea, but you cannot make wudu in it, right? You have to make wudu in water. Or you put mint. Egyptian people will always put mint in everything, right? Now it's mint water, it's not water anymore. We discussed this, right? And this is interesting because a lot of times, have you ever heard people that you go to a hotel, non-Muslim hotel, and they're like, I don't know, man, this carpet here in the hotel, I don't know who used it. I'm not using this. I'm not praying here. Where's your evidence? How do you know it's dirty? Where's your evidence? Is there any change there? Is there anything that you can relate to? Right? You cannot just say that, right? Which means if you don't have a praying rug, which is, by the way, not a fard to use or anything, people just use it, then you can absolutely use, that area, right? There's another concept that says, كُلَّمَا جَفَّ فَهُوَ طَاهِرٌ. Anything that's dry, it's already tahir, it's already pure. So even if there was something and now it's gone, it's dry, you can use it, right? Number 4 concept or 5 is prohibition is for forbiddance. If you say, if Prophet Muhammad says no, then it's haram except in manners, right? This is the stronger opinion. It's very, very important so that you don't go to someone and says, if you don't use your left hand, you're going to go to hell. He can't, he has a problem with it, it's makruh. It's best that he can't, that he does use his right hand, but if he can't, that's it. If you don't sleep on your, Prophet Muhammad said, don't sleep on your stomach, or sleep on your right hand side. Okay, someone said, okay, I sleep on my right hand side. By the way, quick question. Prophet Muhammad told us his sunnah was to sleep on the right hand side. How did he sleep on the right hand side? Do you remember?
I think he used to sleep on it for a while and then.
But how? Like this? He would put his hands, right. And there's some evidence, research, that when you do that, it actually regulates your heart. Allah Alam. I just heard something like this. So I don't know. And believe me, everything will be proven one day, whether or not we'll see it or not. So If you sleep on your right hand, when you sleep, do you have to wake up on your right hand? Yes? No, right? Because you don't know what you're doing when you sleep, right? So it's not a sin. And if you don't sleep on your right hand, it's okay. It's mustahab, right? This is one of the things. It's not a fard, right? Next thing is, the ruling we talked about is not restricted only to junub or to ghusl. It also includes menstruation or wudu. So because it says junub, it also included menstruation, which is higher. Because it included ghusl, it says don't take ghusl in that stagnant water. It also applies to wudu, which is less. Al-a'la al-adna or al-adna lil-a'la. Right? We're almost done. Here's a question. So what about you have this stagnant water. You have this stagnant water, and someone jumped in when he was junub and did ghusl. Can you say, I don't know, man, I'm not going to use this water, and there's no other water. Can I go now do tayammum?
There's no other water anywhere.
There's no other water. This is the only water. That's stagnant water. Someone jumped in, and he was junub, and he made ghusl. Analyze. Think about it. What did we say? Someone goes take ghusl from stagnant water while he's junub. Is this haram or makruh? Depends, right? Right? And then what did we say that you can use this water or not based on what? Based on change, right? So someone jump in. Is that enough? You gotta see change. So if there's no change, you use it. If there's change, what do? And you don't choose it, and you do tayammum, right? Because you know this is changed, this is now impure. See how you have to analyze it, right? What about bathtub water? In the bathtub, hanging out, you know, and you know, someone bathtub and urinate, right? Can you then now make wudu or ghusl from that water? Normally what? You wouldn't make wudu?
I mean, just you have other water, just other water. But if it's the same scenario as the last one, and it's the same thing, like how they jumped in, like if that's the only water you have, and like it didn't change nothing, then
Okay. Any other opinion from the fuqaha here?
What's the hadith about Prophet ﷺ when he said you shouldn't use the water, you shouldn't use the water to bathe or wudu after you urinate?
Right.
What's the,
Yeah, don't urinate and then take a bath from
so he
it.
said no.
Right.
So it's
But it's not necessarily haram.
okay.
Right. But you didn't ask me, this bathtub, is it running? Is it stuck? Is there a source? You gotta think about that. So if the water is stuck, there's no other source and flow and stuff, then you should not do that. But if it's running, maybe it's up but it's running, then you can actually, use it, right? So you have to analyze the situation. And we're done, alhamdulillah. Any questions? This whole analysis was about stagnant water, right? It just shows you the depth of analysis that, subhanAllah, the fuqaha and our scholars got into. And when someone tell you math is such an amazing science or engineering is an amazing science, you should see what the fuqaha of Islam do or did. You should see what the ilm al-hadith, how the scholars said this hadith is sahih or jayyid or mawdu' or mawquf or marfu' or gharib or hasan. How did they get to that? It's amazing analysis. Alhamdulillah that we have Islam, and alhamdulillah that we're Muslims. A lot of people always say alhamdulillah I'm Muslim, alhamdulillah I'm Muslim. Realize that when we say alhamdulillah we are Muslims, it's actually a responsibility. You should be thankful to Allah that you're Muslim, but you should not stop there. Your responsibility is to be the best Muslim you can, to make da'wah to others, and to represent, alhamdulillah, inshallah, Islam. As a matter of fact, if we're Muslims and we know the right and wrong, and we still do wrong, that's a big problem. So we're gonna end here. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم.